in the dimly lit backroom of a nondescript bar in New Jersey. The air was thick with smoke and tension. The jukebox played an old Frank Sinatra tune, barely audible over the hushed conversations of patrons who seemed more like shadows than people. It was here, in this unassuming place, that I found myself drawn into the world of organized crime, a world that, for years, I had observed from the outside as a curious reporter, but never truly understood until I was inside. My name is Johnny Jax Mocurio. I grew up in a neighborhood where the mafia was as much a part of life as family dinners and high school football. My father was a hard-working mechanic, but he often whispered tales of the old country and the men who ran things from the shadows. I listened, wide-eyed, and began to see the allure of power that came with organized crime. Little did I know, my desire to understand would lead me down a treacherous path. It all started in the summer of 1995. I was fresh out of college, eager to make a name for myself in journalism. One evening, while covering a local mob trial, I met Tony the Blade Barone, a notorious enforcer known for his ruthless reputation. Tony was charismatic, with a quick smile that masked a darker nature. He took a liking to me, perhaps seeing the potential for a mutually beneficial relationship. He invited me to meet some of his associates, claiming they could provide me with insights that would make my stories more compelling. At first, I was hesitant. I knew the risks involved, but the thrill of being close to the action was intoxicating. After weeks of inner turmoil, I decided to accept Tony's invitation, thinking it would give me an edge in my reporting. I was about to step into a world where loyalty was currency and betrayal was punished harshly. My initiation into the crime family was subtle. I attended social gatherings, weddings, christenings, and family dinners where the scent of marinara sauce filled the air and laughter mingled with the clinking of glasses. I learned to navigate the delicate balance of respect and fear that defined their interactions. It was during these gatherings that I saw the bonds that held the organization together, forged through a code of honor that was as complex as it was rigid. One evening, as I sat at a long table filled with the family's men, I overheard whispers about a rival gang attempting to encroach on their territory. Tony leaned over to me, a glint of excitement in his eyes. "You see, Jax, this is how we maintain order. If we don't take care of business, we lose everything." His word sent a shiver down my spine. I was witnessing the gears of organized crime in motion, and I was part of the machinery, however unwittingly. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself increasingly drawn into their world. I was privy to meetings where decisions were made with chilling efficiency. I watched as Tony and his crew plotted their next moves, whether it was a shakedown, a protection racket, or a strategic hit on a rival. I learned the significance of loyalty, but I also witnessed the consequences of betrayal. One night, a man who had crossed Tony was dragged into the back room of the bar. I heard the muffled sounds of a brutal beating, a reminder that the crime family was not merely a business, it was a violent brotherhood. Despite the thrill, there was a heaviness that settled over me. I began to grapple with the moral implications of my involvement. I had come to understand their motivations, but I also saw the devastation they left in their wake. Families torn apart, businesses extorted, lives lost. Each story I wrote felt like a betrayal to the victims who suffered at their hands. Yet I felt trapped. The access I had gained was intoxicating, and I was fearful of what would happen if I tried to extricate myself. The turning point came one fateful evening in early 1996. I was invited to a meeting that took place in a warehouse on the outskirts of town. As I entered, I noticed a tension in the air, palpable and oppressive. Tony stood at the center, flanked by his most trusted men. It was clear they were planning something big. I felt the weight of my decision pressing down on me as I watched them discuss their intentions. In the corner of the room, a large map of the city was spread out on a table. They were planning an attack on a rival gang, a bold move that could incite a full-blown war. I could feel the blood drain from my face. This was no longer an abstract story. It was a real-life scenario where lives would be at stake. I could hear my heart pounding in my chest as Tony caught my eye. "Jax, you're with us for this one, right?" he asked, a grin on his face. Panic set in. I had crossed a line, and I was not sure how to turn back. I think I should not maybe sit this one out," I stammered, feeling the heat of their gazes on me. Tony's smile faded, and for the first time, I felt the true weight of fear. "You're part of this now," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You don't walk away from family." In that moment, I realized the precariousness of my situation. I was caught between the world of crime and the responsibility I had as a journalist. The choice was clear. Either I walked away now, or risk becoming complicit in their violent plans. I made a decision in that instant. I could no longer be an observer. I had to escape this world before it consumed me. I left the meeting that night, my heart racing and my mind spinning. I knew I needed to find a way out. The next day, I contacted a trusted source in law enforcement, a detective I had worked with on previous stories. I laid everything bare, revealing my involvement with Tony and the crime family. The detective was shocked, but took my information seriously. Together, we devised a plan to gather evidence against the family while ensuring my safety. I agreed to go undercover, documenting their activities and providing intel to the authorities. It was a dangerous game, but I felt a sense of purpose that I hadn't experienced before. I had a chance to expose the corruption and violence that had plagued my community for too long. As I delved deeper into the investigation, I documented everything: the meetings, the conversations, the dealings. The stakes were high, and the tension in the air was palpable. I began to realize that the world I had romanticized was built on fear and bloodshed, and I was now a part of the fight against it. The climax came several months later. Armed with enough evidence to warrant a raid, law enforcement moved in on the crime family. I watched from a safe distance as the familiar faces I once knew were handcuffed and led away. It was a surreal moment, one that filled me with a mixture of relief and sorrow. I had taken down a significant piece of organized crime, but at what cost? In the aftermath, I wrote an expose detailing my experiences, revealing the inner workings of the crime family and the impact of their actions on the community. The article garnered national attention, sparking discussions about organized crime and its influence on society. However, it also made me a target. I received threats and had to relocate, living under a new identity for my safety. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that the allure of organized crime had been a mirage, a fleeting glimpse of power that was built on fear and violence. My experiences taught me the importance of integrity and the responsibility that comes with being a storyteller. While I had entered the world of organized crime seeking understanding, I emerged with a deeper comprehension of the complexities of morality and the consequences of one's choices. In the end, I found solace in knowing that I had made a difference, however small, in the fight against organized crime. My journey was fraught with danger and uncertainty, but it ultimately reaffirmed my commitment to using my voice to shed light on the darker corners of society. Though the shadows of the past lingered, I was determined to walk a path illuminated by truth.